So two thoughts I'll share with you today about what I'd like to do in the next 4 years. And there's really two broad themes that I think encompass all of the 350 plus legislative ideas I've got on my bulletin board at home. And there's two themes. The first one is, I do believe that right now in our state and in our city and in America, the American dream is at risk. And this is the first generation where we've seen all the statistics and all the forecasts show that actually my generation is going to be worse off than my parents' generation. First time in American history. We also know the challenges that we're having with respect to inequality and the growing gap in our communities between folks who are fortunate enough to have a lot of assets and resources and folks who struggle every day. Now for me, this really comes down to years and years of whittling away at equality of opportunity in our society. And what I mean by that is, if you think it's NCAA tournament time, and my bracket's not doing very well, but Louisville's doing great. If you think of a basketball court, and you think about the rules of the game and the teams playing, what's happened over time in our society is, for one team, it's getting easier to score. The basket's getting bigger, the lines and such are drawn to favor them. And for another team, the rules are changing to make it harder. The basket's getting smaller. And this is what's happening throughout, I believe, our public policy. And I'm going to give you a few examples of things driving this. And some of them are economic and some of them are public policy. But we've seen food prices go up 75% in the last 5 years. We've seen energy costs go up 2 times. We've seen healthcare costs go up 3 times. These are structural cost problems, changing the game for folks who can afford those things and folks who can't. We've also seen the way debt works in our society, I think, work against our society. And I'm talking about payday lending, I'm talking about subprime mortgages, the tuition debt crisis that we're going through, where students are essentially tricked into additional years of school or for-profit schooling, and then they come out with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that they didn't know about. We also have challenges around access to capital, and that means like credit scores. You know, in America today, if your credit score is at all impaired, forget about it. You are written off by our society. You can't get a loan, you can't get a car, and now you can't even get a job because we're pre-screening based on credit scoring. These are the kinds of things that are changing the rules of the game for some folks in our society, and these are the kinds of things that I want to fix up in Santa Fe. Now there's one other favorite that I like to talk about in terms of the rules of the game, and it's tax policy. Those of you who know that I work on a lot of tax stuff and it's often pretty mundane and boring, let me just tell you this. Right now our state has 127 tax exemptions for different groups, different companies, depends on where you live. Some are good, some might be bad. The bottom line is that's worth $1 billion. What that means is, if you are not getting one of those tax breaks, you're paying 20% extra to subsidize everyone else who's getting a free ride. And let me tell you, this is also where opportunity lies. We could get rid of half of those exemptions and drop our taxes for everyone by 2%. That, to me, is good public policy. Now, the second thing I want to share with you is, I think our state is also somewhat adrift in terms of a broad vision. We've gone through different phases, whether it was the 70s or the 80s, when, frankly, we actually had some economic development plans. We had some comprehensive items for education to work on, like the funding formula and things like that. But in the last 2 and 3 years, we've really lost our way. And myself included, all of us up in Santa Fe, we're in a rut where we really look at incremental, small change type of legislation that isn't going to get us out of these rankings where we always rank low as a state. And it makes politicians feel better, because I can come back and tell you all the education bills I supported, all the job bills I helped support. But at the end of the day, we are avoiding the tough issues up in Santa Fe. And we're avoiding the kind of conversation that we've got to have around early childhood development, about drastically changing our education system that includes money into the classroom, and getting rid of standardized testing that's taken out of everything in our classroom. So I'm taking ideas on what we can do for a holistic vision for our state. It might take a while. I want 4 more years to work on it. You know, we had a good move with the film industry, actually, bringing them in. and we've had different targeted programs, and we've got to figure out what's next. Is it sustainable energy? Is it becoming a healthcare capital in the Southwest? Is it becoming a cultural capital in the Southwest that brings all the diversity together that we have to offer? I'm not sure, maybe it's a combination of all three. But I know this, we've got to be talking about this in Santa Fe because we aren't right now.
Tim for governor.
Let me ask this, send me up another 4 years and then we'll talk. Well, lastly, I just want to leave you with this. You know, as many of you have known, I do have a challenger again. It's the rematch. Robinson versus Keller round 2. If you haven't heard, my opponent from last time, Senator Shannon Robinson, he was there 20 years as a Democrat, is now running as a Republican. The irony, because of course, as many of you know, in college, some things happened, including I used to be a Republican. So that's right, I saw the light. You know, everyone makes mistakes in college. But that does bring me to one point. The ideas that I shared with you earlier have nothing to do with party. And so one thing that I have always tried to do is, of course, stick to my values and stick to what I believe, which happens to be pretty much liberal and progressive values, but also understand that policy comes before politics. And on a lot of those business ideas, I've been fortunate to have bipartisan support for those. I've even done a couple of bills with the governor, and 5 minutes later, of course, we're fighting over a different bill. But I just want you to know that I will always put policy over politics to make sure we do what's right for New Mexico.